I welcome back everyone to this session, Sustainable Logistics, Clean, Green and Circular. In this session, the panelists will focus on exploring practical solutions for logistics sector to move forward with sustainability projects. I would like to welcome Mr. Aditya Shah, Executive Director, VTrans India Limited, to chair the session on sustainable logistics. Mr. Aditya is one of the youngest director at VTrans India Limited, which is a 6-decade-old company and integrated logistics solution provider group in the country. Mr. Aditya is now in business for over 12 years, backed with deep knowledge of the industry and business know-how. His innovative skills, enthusiasm, and risk-taking abilities have helped the business to grow new heights. Over to Mr. Aditya to chair the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bhanumati. And thanks, CII, for this opportunity given. First of all, good morning to each one of you. And it gives me an immense pleasure to be part of a panel with such wonderful speakers and an audience. And we are discussing a topic which is, I think, very crucial, important, and worthy of deliberations. ESG slash sustainability has been a buzzword in the corporate for many years. We have seen the financial markets also rewarding ESG compliant companies. There is an index, Dow Jones Sustainability Index, which is also established to recognize companies. The regulatory framework is also pushing the companies to be more compliant, and even organizations have realized on their own the role that they have towards the planet and the coming generations. This brings us to the agenda that we have for the first session of the Logistics Summit on Sustainable Ecosystem, Vision 2027 by CII. And the topic for our panel is Sustainable Logistics, Clean, Green and Circular. We have with us some of the industry leaders who will deliberate on the topic and throw light on various aspects of the industry and how we are moving on the ESG part, where the world is and where we are as a nation. Before I begin my session, I would like to share some data points to share with each and everyone how big the ESG impact is. As per the reports by Niti Aayog and Rocky Mountain Institute, by 2050, India can save around 3.1 lakh crore worth of fuel and reduce 10 gigatons of CO2 emissions by implementing clean and sustainable transportation practices. That number is huge. During the start of the pandemic phase, the CO2 emissions fell by almost 7% globally, which is equivalent to around 2.6 billion metric tons of CO2. According to the International Transport Forum report, carbon dioxide emissions for freight transportation account for almost 30% of the overall transportation-related carbon emissions from fuel and represent 7% of the total global emissions. Alternate or blended fuel present an opportunity, as a diesel truck compared to a gas engine increases the carbon footprint by almost 13%, but is a viable operationally and economically. EV has been one of the most potential game changers. However, the current ecosystem may not be ready and the infra will take its own time. So all these, and there are many such points which we can discuss and deliberate, and I'm sure the leaders of the panel have their own thoughts that they would like to share with the audience. Let me start first by quickly introducing the panel members so that everyone is acquainted with them. First, I'd like to go with Mr. Jehan Kotwal. He is the CEO of Humsafar. At the age of 29, Jehan Kotwal has swiftly become one of the most sought after young entrepreneurs to look out for. He has not only taken over the family business, which is JFK Transporters, but taken it into new heights, opening offices all across the country, introducing technology, and contributing to the field of road transportation. Jehan's latest social venture startup, Good Mind, is using AI to save over 250 lives daily on road accidents. Humsafar Driving Safety Foundation NGO is also working on driver welfare. So welcome, Jehan. Then we have Mr. Amit Borkar. He is the Vice President Operations for Airemend Fasteners India Private Limited. He joined Airemend in April 2015 and responsible for leading the supply chain operations, implementing operating systems, and enhancing the end-to-end supply chain performance. To his credit, significant role has been played in reshaping the supply chain strategy, resulting in improved order fulfillment and sales revenue and driving functional excellence. So welcome, Mr. Amit. Next on the panel, we have Mr. Anil Mishra, who is the National Logistics Head of Pladis Global. Mr. Anil is having more than 20 years of experience in the supply chain domain, working in FMCG, white goods, IT, automotive, retail, and healthcare. He's been part of the freight forwarding, verticals in the companies like Pladis Global, Amway, Hire, Agility, and Geologistics. He's having an in-depth experience of end-to-end supply chain, procurement, demand planning, SNOP, production and dispatch planning, and even the CFA and the CHA holding. So I welcome Mr. Anil Mishra. We have last member, Mr. Shyam Arumungan, who is the Managing Director of Industrial and Logistics Services at Colliers International. Mr. Shyam has joined Colliers in the year 2015 in the Chennai office as an Associate Director of Office Services. The entrepreneurial culture and strong visionary leadership at Colliers motivated him to join Colliers after a decade-long stint at CBRE, where he was working in the consulting and advisory services for the marquee global clients. So I welcome Mr. Shyam as well to the panel. So we have a wonderful set of panel. I'm sure we have an exciting day planned ahead. Going forward, we have Mr. Jihan, who would like to take you through a presentation on Humsafar. So over to you, Mr. Jihan.
Yes, thank you so much. And good morning, everyone. I'm Jihan Kotwal. Thank you, Aditya, for that introduction. And thank you, CII, for giving us this opportunity. Especially, I'm probably one of the youngest here. And with all these thought leaders, it's an inspiring place to be at. And hopefully what I'm showing you today, some of you have seen, a lot of you who don't know about it, the idea is to expose you to the idea and to try and see how we can change the game when it comes to road transport, especially for the truck driver community. So if you can just give me a minute, I'll be presenting a small deck, which should give you some insights on this. And then if you have any questions, please feel free to at the end of the session. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Great. So Humsafar or Humsafer, the idea is to make Indian roads safer. And with us, what the biggest contributors to the trucking ecosystem, where I come, is primarily the truck driver. Also, the most important and the most ignored. So what happens with this ecosystem is typically, a lot of you are aware, but for those who aren't, we have in India, unfortunately, the highest amount of road accidents in the world. About 415 people die every day in India. And most of them are the youth of our country. They're under the age of 35. Typically, out of the total, accidents, we have almost 1.7 lakh deaths, but we also have 4.6 lakh accidents, which in a way is a result of our problem towards the economy, because we lose 3% of our GDP. And also, not only that, we also have a very big issue with the infrastructure XYZ in terms of how it was built, the roads, etc. And primarily, a lot of these road accidents especially happen on national highways. So almost 65% of this happens on national highways. And this, most of the time, especially the deaths, involve truck drivers. So that's one of the big reasons why we wanted to address this problem. For those of you who don't know, just a quick glimpse of this is how a truck driver becomes a truck driver. So you have a cleaner or a worker's assistant or a truck driver's assistant who learns under a truck driver. There are no formal training institutes, and the ones that are don't generally get the employment directly into trucking companies. Typically in India, it works on a referral model, and that's how the trust is built, and that's how the network is spread. So if you have a good teacher, you learn good driving practices. If you have a bad teacher, you learn bad driving practices. So the story is a little unique in the sense that my father was a truck driver himself. He started by driving his own truck. And when we used to have 10 trucks, when I just joined the business, we used to have 3-4 accidents every year. And I was not very comfortable with that fact. And I wanted to change that, because globally, that's not the case. And so how can we use technology? How can we use human-centered design? What can we do to improve the drivers' lives? That was my core focus in JFK. I would say I could have built 1,000 vehicles by now, but the idea was that we wanted to even build 100, but make them the safest and build the safest trucking company in India. So we were able to do that in 2019. By the time we had reached 110 vehicles, we had one accident throughout the year. And so if my trucking company can do it, I believe everyone can. So the idea is we are proof that it's possible. And so how can we now make sure that the country moves in the same direction? So a little bit about us is that, like I mentioned earlier, we're a social venture that's using the power of the for-profit and the not-for-profit sector to build solutions for the truck drivers to make them more prosperous and our roads safer. Essentially, for those of you who don't know, road accidents, 80% is human error. It's avoidable. 60% is bad driving practices. 20% or now almost 30% is due to sleep deprivation. A third issue is that when an accident happens, emergency services aren't instantly available, and your location sharing, things like that become a big problem for the industry and for the person or the victim on the road. And that golden hour is critical. So to avoid that, what we've done is we've created a very simple asset-light smartphone-based solution. It's today almost close to 85 to 90% drivers have smartphones. What we do is we essentially give them real-time driving correction. So if they follow any kind of bad driving practices, and I'll explain more in a bit, we've entirely gamified this whole system and we reward them for positive behavior. So if they drive well, they get certain points, those points are redeemable, XYZ. And through this, with that also, we build a community of drivers who essentially talk to each other, help each other out, give them assistance if there's any problem at suppose some tolls or some dhabas, etc. And also support during emergencies as well. So what do we mean by real-time assistance? So for example, let's say a driver is overspeeding over 60 or 65. We say, Ustad, in his language, of course, Ustad, aapka diesel overuse ho raha hai. We communicate if you tell him that take a break after half an hour or after 4 hours for at least half an hour, we say, Ustad, chai break lijiye. There are a bunch of parameters on which loads of road safety tools are pushed into the system, but essentially in real time it corrects his behavior. A small thing like sleep deprivation we avoid by just using the selfie camera of the phone. You keep it in front of the driver. If his eyes shut for more than 3 seconds, it buzzes an alert and wakes the driver up. Now, these kind of instruments, if I had to put in my truck, which I did for many years, I had to spend a lot of money in terms of infrastructure, in terms of cost for maintaining that infrastructure on the truck, the cameras, the GPS, all of this. Today, we are giving this entire solution to the country for free. And the idea is through this, right? What can we do is we build a complete focus around human-centered design and get the drivers involved in their road safety, get their families involved in road safety. So make sure, so a simple thing like family tracking for them and their loved ones. Today, I know where my trucks are because I put GPS on each and every truck. On the click of my phone, I can know where they are. But the family of the driver doesn't know. Out of the 170,000 deaths, 15,000 are truck drivers every year. These family people who've lost their husbands or their fathers don't have any other source of income. At least through this, they will know where their loved one is. And if in case a hospital or something bad happens, they can reach them in that location. Apart from that, like I mentioned, emergency services, our call center is enabled. What we're doing is making it a full-fledged call center for emergency services, which is linked with the national highways, and they can reach that exact location at that given time. So why would the driver use a safety app? Because honestly speaking, he doesn't really care about it as much. He's more cared about, but the reason why he's driving is usko zyada paisa kamane. So a list of incentives that we've put in place, and we love your contribution as an industry to come forward to support us in this, is win a truck every month. So we make a driver from a driver to a truck owner. That's one idea. We already have started the insurance for drivers and their families. We're giving currently 10,000 drivers 1 lakh rupees medical cover, not only for COVID, but also accident as well as health medical check anywhere across the country. A third thing is for every kilometer of safe driving, we give them 15 paisa per kilometer into their UPI account. So currently, as we have tens of thousands of drivers, we also have seen that a lot of these drivers are majorly changing their behavior because there is something in it for them. So a typical driver using Humsafar app can earn anywhere between 600 to 1500 rupees, depending on the kilometers he's driving. And that's what influences him to drive safer. Apart from that, fuel and discounts, tolls, tires, these are the kind of things that we've worked with companies. We've tied up with one of the largest global tire companies in the world to make sure that we can service them wherever they need. Fifth is top driver award ceremony and leaderboard. That's something that to encourage the drivers to keep safe driving, etc. So This is a bit about our business model. It's a hybrid business model. And essentially, if a company or a logistics company would like to come through CSR, we'd actually started with a foundation earlier, but the technology was very, very costly. So we had to build a for-profit entity which supports the not-for-profit. So both these companies are interdependent and support each other for the same cause. Apart from that, what do you call, we do financial literacy, medical and free eye checkups, and of course, safety awareness through videos, etc., to give the drivers safety training. And what we're looking at building for the nation is something called an SDS, a safe driving score. Think of it in the terms of a CIBIL rating for truck drivers, where you can know based on the driver's driving habit over 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, what is his pattern and how safe is he as a driver. This not only will help the driver get a better income in any job across the board, but also help companies hire good quality drivers. So that's more or less it about us. We do a little bit around this, but I don't want to take more of your time. I hope it was of interest. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jehan. And I must say it's a very, very noble initiative that you've taken. And definitely, I think everyone would support you in taking the initiative higher. And it's a cause which is worthy of the investment that we all as an industry participants need to make. So deeply appreciated. Now, coming on to the panel discussion, we will have the next 30 to 45 minutes that we will spend on the, few questions that we've discussed together as a team. And we will, after that, we'll have few round of open questions where each participant is free to participate and add to the points. And after that, we will open the forum for Q&A to the audience. So starting with the panel, coming back to Jehan, you being the first one whom we'll talk to. You mentioned very key metrics is like 400 deaths on the road, 3% of GDP loss because of accidents, which is a very big and disturbing number. So since you've spoken about driver safety as a big area of focus, what would you suggest, and what do you think organizations across the segment can do to add to this cause, because of your experience in the subject? What is it that you feel can be done to make the scale of it larger?
Right. So thank you for that question. From our perspective, what we've seen is, the biggest advantage that we have today is technology. It's an application free of cost. Every truck driver has a smartphone. I think fundamentally for us, the big way to make the industry come on board is there are two ways of approaching a problem. There is the bottom-up approach and the top-down. So depending on that, penetration can go and the speed of penetration changes. For example, FASTag, right? It was a top-down approach. Everybody now today has a FASTag in their truck. If the industry, for example, makes this or a safety product, or not only Humsafar, any kind of digital safety product compulsory when the factory gate, as soon as the truck enters the factory gate, right? That's one thing the manufacturers can do. Every logistics company can make this part of their hiring system when they're hiring drivers. That's another thing that they can do. It can be a part of the ecosystem where this is something that institutions or insurance companies take the SDS score as a standard driving practice and then make sure the drivers are ranked in this way. So I think fundamentally, if I had to tell you or break it down, one of the ways that we've thought of it is each one has a certain bucket and each one has a certain strength. The strength of the manufacturers is that they can control which kind of trucks come in or go out. If suppose a truck is not quality enough in terms of a good quality truck to enter the premises or to take the cargo, don't allow that truck inside, right? Check the driver if he is intoxicated or not, or if he actually is a good quality driver or not. Make sure. So what we are doing right now with a couple of large FMCG brands is that as soon as a truck enters, we've got a Humsafar QR code. The driver just scans it and then enters into the truck. He downloads it and then continues on his way out. So that's one thing we're doing from the manufacturer side. From the logistics companies side, large shipping companies are working with us to make sure that they can give the extra little bit, so to speak, advantages to the good quality drivers, give them some extra rewards. We're talking to the government on the bus side to make sure that we can incentivize safe driving practices for the bus drivers as well. So fundamentally, each one has to take interest in this. They have to say, this is a priority for me. Drivers, not only their lives, the people on the road, their lives. So if we don't be socially conscious, nobody will. And it all starts with us, our roles in our companies making it a part of our system. For me, it took me 3 years to build the GPS system in my own company. No driver is interested. Who cares, right? That's the Indian attitude we have. कि चलता है, लोग तो है इतने सारे, तो मरेंगे तो it's okay, क्या बड़ी बात है? You know, and unfortunately, that mentality of just numbers and this sadness in terms of the statistics has to change. We have to wake up and say that, hey, this is a real problem. You know, the next one closest to us, we're 170,000 deaths. The next one closest to us is 60,000, which is China. Right? We're so far ahead. So if we have to reach, you know, the goal of Mr. Gadkari, which is to bring it down by 50% by 2025, we all need to work towards it. It can't happen government or Modi ji to do something like this. We have to be a part of the problem and solve it internally. So yeah, that would be my answer for that.
Excellent. I totally agree, because I think we being from the similar field, we also witness the kind of pain that we have to go through, you know, the emotional and the financial pain. So it's better to be, you know, in a preventive mode rather than a corrective mode, you know, all the time. So I understand, and I think definitely it's a joint effort that everybody needs to put in. It's not only you know, the players or industry. It's, I think, everybody's. Now it's high time that I think everybody focuses on safety as something that is very inherently missing in us as a, you know, probably a culture. So thanks, Jian. Moving on from safety to you know, more aspects of sustainability, I would like to invite Mr. Amit as part of the panel and the next question. So Mr. Amit, I think I believe your industry belongs to the automotive segment, and we've heard a lot of things you know, happening in and around this industry. So could you throw lights on, you know, what are the changes on the sustainable side happening in the automotive industry? And if you can share some thoughts on the circular economy and your own experience onto the subject.
Okay, sure. Thanks. Thank you, Aditya. Though I'm not that expert on circular, but I will throw light what we are doing to do that. When you mentioned the word sustainability, I think probably what Jehan shared and saving lives itself is a sustainability. So one act, that's a fantastic venture what I think he's doing. So that's really great. Coming back to the question, the automotive industry, as we know, is a quite prominent and it's a very job earner for all of us. And everyone is aspired by when you see any automobile, be it a truck or be it a car or be it a bike. So that's really good. And this industry has come a long way. It's a long way. It has been a regularized. So when you talk of sustainable, we can see the various norms on the emission has been changed. And India was a front runner who jumped from BS4 to BS6. And that was, I think it was a pushy decision, but I think it's a fantastic. Today, the technology is available and everyone are using the BS6, which are less polluting vehicles. We are there. So if you look at also case, that is the future, what it talks of how we want to sustain our industry as automotive and the tier ones. So they talk of the case norm that is connected, autonomous, shared, and electric. And I think that's the future. So there are a couple of views, whether we want to go with hybrid first, whether we want to go with the e-mobility that is completely battery electric vehicles, or in future we might get hydrogen vehicles also, hydrogen fuel cells. That's fantastic future. So this industry is taking right steps in the right direction. Now the traction is very fast. So being a solution provider to automotive industry, the amount of requests what we are saying, the requirement of customer has drastically changed. So everything is moving very fast. Now we have the established players already, like we know the likes of those brands. But today, because of this revolution, anybody is coming up with the right idea, right technology, and starting a new firm, and they are into mobility. And now the mobility dimension itself has changed. It's not only two-wheeler, four-wheeler. Probably it can be drones. It is also one kind of mobility tomorrow. So a lot of things have been changed to see it is sustained. And of course, on the environmental side, it is going to have a very positive impact. That how we make that. That is one case. Second, very important is on the lightweighting, reuse and reduce the weight of the parts. So we do help a lot on helping into how we can light scale the components, how we can make it more durable using less material, And being a part of this global network, we are a global network company of around 40 manufacturing sites. So we do share each other what are the best practice happening in China, be it USA or Europe. So as a part of circular economy, more stress has been given, or everybody is given of reducing and reusing. So that's the key thing that what we can do. Predominantly, I'm from a steel industry and plastic molding industry. So we are trying to work with our partners that how that plastic molding can be reused. And one of the key factor what has been proposed today, one was easy for assembly or design for assembly, that DFA, that is what the solution was. Today that is there, but today we are thinking how it can be disassembled in a right way. So it can be reduced, it can be reused, it can be recycled. So that thought process has been quite evolving in our industry. That let's do a good assembly also, but it should be easy to disassemble also. So idea is to save environment, to save less material, and that's so many things. So this is what is happening today, Aditya, in my industry, especially tier ones, where we are trying to adopt the right technology. Even the plants what we are building, it's our gold certified or platinum certified, lead certification has been there. So a lot of emphasis has been done. We are hiring the right expertise for that today. Right expertise has been formed into that. That is one. Second, from a sustainable standpoint, we have taken a step forward that as employees, we are reaching to our family members, how they can contribute to protect this environment. Okay, it's not only that it is left to me, my family is included. We are going ahead adopting certain villages to improve on the economic factor, the environmental factor, and it's like a mentoring. So a lot of things are happening in this world. And again, it's circular economy. What we do, it's going to impact us again. So if you do a good job, I'm sure good will happen to all of us. So that's the key things are really happening in this industry. And this electric vehicle is a game changer. For sure, it's a game changer. So that's from my side.
Thanks, Mr. Amit, and I totally agree. And as receivers of the or mobility product, we from the transport or the logistics side,
Yeah.
I think we all as an industry have been quite keenly waiting, to what developments are happening and how fast they can, be made available. Just as a small example, although the scale is pretty small, but we've switched a big numbers onto CNG vehicles, and even we've piloted EVs for our, last mile deliveries. But again, the pace at which we feel, transition needs to happen, I think that is slightly, unclear of how fast that will happen. But yeah, Amitji, sorry.
Well, absolutely true. I think we also recently changed our fleet, though we are not directly controlling, but we encourage them to move to CNG. And for sure, going ahead, we'll try to see it is electric vehicles. So
yes, correct.
right.
So lots to look forward to from the mobility sector. I think it could be one of the biggest enablers in terms of moving into the sustainability side. Deeply appreciated, Amitji.
Thank you.
Moving to the next question would be from Mr. Anil Mishra. Mr. Anil, you've been part of the FMCG industry. So I would like to hear from you your views on, the overall sustainability part, and what could be, the regular practices on maybe recycling, reduction of CO2 emissions from warehousing, transportation, and your experience on the subject.
Yeah, sir. Sorry, Mr. Anil got disconnected.
Okay,
There is some technical issue with him, so can pass on the question to the next person. Yeah.
Sure, no issues. Sorry for that. We'll move to Mr. Shyam. I think Mr. Shyam, you come from the real estate background. So your thoughts on how do you see the future of sustainable real estate? Industry which is built on iron and cement as base elements of the segment. What could be the trends that are affecting your industry, and where do you see the next 5 to 10 years on the sustainability side? If you can share your thoughts on the subject.
Thank you so much, Aditya. Thank you, CI. Thank you for the opportunity, and thanks to all the panelists. Great thoughts and inputs. So Aditya, I'll break it down into two separate parts. So one part is that on the overall emergence of what we are seeing. Since I've been in the sector for the last 17 years, and I've seen it, watch it carefully grow. And when it comes to the logistics part, I mean, warehousing plays a very, very vital part. And also, as Colliers, we've been kind of deeply engaged with a lot of corporates, especially developers and occupiers, both sides. Developers who put in the infrastructure that was requisite for creating this logistics infrastructure, made multimodal logistics park that is kind of grown as a segment, or the standalone warehousing projects that you see in any part of the country, right? What you asked is a very valid question. I think with the main components being cement and steel, and contributing towards so much of construction that is evolved, I think the pace also has picked up after the pandemic. I mean, what has happened is that there is a sea change in kind of e-commerce demand. As soon as the pandemic had hit, I mean, everybody went into our shell, and e-commerce is something that has kind of catapulted in terms of demand over this entire last 2 years that we are seeing. To keep up pace with the demand, I think warehouse construction is also kind of picked up. What we are seeing globally is that real estate and infrastructure is 40% contributor to the global carbon emissions that are there. And it's a big responsibility. I think that we need to kind of have this mindset to kind of bring down that carbon emissions. And I think we have a great opportunity as well as a responsibility to do that. So what we are seeing is that we are advocating to occupiers and to developers alike right from the start. I mean, whenever somebody is thinking of a project, I think now what we are seeing, at least the top 3 developers in the country are very clear that they want to be more responsible in the way that they're bringing about development, especially when they're kind of right from site selection, where they're picking up land, ensuring that they are in compliance to the entire nature. They're not kind of going against taking lands that are agricultural or things like that. I think it starts from there, the right choice of land. And then when it goes to the design features, I think the way that the park is laid out, I think today, everybody, every developer who is kind of worth the salt in the country is kind of putting a lot of thought on the design initiatives. The design initiatives are such that you don't overstep the boundaries, but you result in tangible and intangible saving for yourself as well as the end customer. See, typically, whenever we talk about any new initiative, and it comes at a certain cost, the immediate question is that, is there customer empathy towards that particular cost? So for example, I spend some money on a particular initiative, whether it is going to result in tangible savings, that will kind of augment these new initiatives. Like what we are seeing currently with people developing new warehouses is that one, they keep a lot of focus, like I said, on one land site selection, on the initiatives of even going into things like how much of solar skylight is actually used to kind of penetrate into the warehousing. So typically people were used to doing 2%, 3%. Now they've gone all the way up to 5 to 7% of your roof has skylights embedded in it. So every developer who's putting up a new warehouse today designs his roof load to accommodate a solar panel, because they know at some point of time you are going to have so much of portfolio. Like for example, the largest developer today in the country, the private developer, has close to about 49 million square feet of space on his portfolio alone. This is spread across 40, 45 parks across the country. So imagine the kind of footprint that he will have to put up solar energy, get green power to his particular thing. So it starts from there. The other thing is that in terms of proper ventilation, I think the biggest shift that we had seen as in flight of quality is that we were kind of gradually moving from the older godowns. The godowns were very dingily lit, no ventilation. So these are some of the common complaints that we used to get as opposed to what we have today. So the HVAC load has come down drastically because your ventilations are further superior. I think you get more air changes per hour. I think that is kind of made another big saving on the energy part. Roof insulation has played a great part. Earlier, when you look at warehouses that were developed, even grade A warehouses, insulation was never a part of it. I think you used to have only a PEB sheet and then there's no insulation. But today, the underdeck insulation has helped. These are things like companies like Amazon, Flipkart, who are very conscious about the workers because they used to work for long hours and the consumption of energy is very high. So these are small initiatives that developers today are coming up with underdeck insulation. So that is bringing down the temperature of the warehouse, gives a very good environment to work in. At the same time, the HVAC costs come down. The other thing is about sewage treatment, the way that we use water, because water is some thing where it is going to hit us very soon in the future. I think the water scarcity in multiple parts of the country that we're experiencing, I think people have found out ways how they treat the water and recircle it back again in the same project. So this is one design aspect that is there. In terms of the solid waste management, I think that is seen a sea change in development. People have put in innovative ways of kind of clearing up waste. Typically after the e-com boom happened, I think a lot of waste production has also increased. Silently, that is kind of created a big threat to the entire overall sustainability. I think that is also well taken care now. People are very clear. On the material selection, I think one, we talked about how the design aspects are incorporated. The second is on the material selection itself. People are very conscious today. They want to kind of use recyclable steel. That is a very important step. Lighting, gone are those days where you have high energy consumption setups that are used in warehousing. I think today every developer is moving towards LED lighting. I think there's a significant reduction in kind of the energy costs. Using fly ash instead of cement. I think that is something that people are consciously doing. Using crushed sand instead of natural sand. I think these are some of the things that we have seen developers in real-time use cases use these. These have resulted in a good amount of tangible savings for the customer and the end user. We advocate a lot of companies to kind of take up infrastructure that gives them returns over a period of time. This reduces their operation cost as well. At the same time, the developer who's putting in the money also gets eligible for green financing whenever he goes for. India is one of the premier developers have got green funding. Green financing for the uninitiated is a way of funding your projects that have a good amount of sustainability goals inbuilt in them. So it makes a big impact for the social cost. I think all the steps in the right direction, Aditya, are happening in this industry. And I think everybody's woken up to this call from the Prime Minister, as well as the sustainability goals that we are linking ourselves as a country today. I think a lot more awareness has to be created. I think we still have a long way to go in that kind of thing. And the whole mindset has to be a green mindset. I mean, people have to be taught as to in the initial stages as though this is not going to be a costly affair for you at all. These are things that will kind of give you tangible savings and returns in the long term. And clients do appreciate this. So at least from an occupier side, we've been able to bring about that change in mindset. I think that is happening, but a long way to go. But all the steps in the right direction are being taken. Just to kind of give you a summary of the answer.
Amazing, Shyam. I think that perspective helps us, even as users of the real estate. In fact, companies like ours and, in the similar field, it helps us to, somewhere achieve the goals as well as, reduce the overall cost of how we operate. Just to complement your thoughts, we as an organization, we've also experimented this, and in fact, solar on a warehouse becomes such a simple solution that needs to be looked at. A company of our size we have an installed capacity of almost 100 kVs on the warehouses, but this can be minimum multiplied by 10 in the next 1.5 years. So we're looking at 1,000 kV on all the warehouses. I mean, in terms of footprint, we would be having around 2.5 million square feet of footprint of warehousing for a company like ours, which is into transportation. Right. So we can imagine the kind of impact that others who are in the warehousing or purely the 3PL segment, the kind of impact that they could do if everybody collaborates on it. So great to hear on the development side. Let us hope in the next 5 years we are able to see a huge impact that comes because of these sustainable initiatives.
I think
Thanks.
2025, Aditya, is where people are setting their ESG goals at today. It's very heartening to see that people are taking a short view. I mean, earlier we all used to do 5-year planning, 10-year planning, and things like that. I think today 5-year has become an extremely long horizon in today's context. So I think 2025 is all. I think we will see a good amount of change. I think from 2022 that we are in, I think
Correct.
2025 is where I see that you'll at least get to scratch the surface in terms of how these initiatives go. I think a lot more implementation. Kudos to you. I think 100 kV is very good for a start, and I think all in the right direction.
Thank you, Shyam. Coming back to Mr. Anil, I think sorry we lost you in the last.
Yeah, it was that my laptop got shut down due to some technical issue.
No
So
issue.
sorry for the inconvenience.
No problem. No problem. So, Mr. Anil, coming to you, you come from the FMCG, background and an MNC that you work in. So, if you could share your thoughts on, what are the kind of recycling practices in logistics that are happening, and what are the initiatives that you can think of, on reduction of CO2 in warehousing and transportation, because you are a national logistics head. If you can share your experiences on this front.
Considering the multinational and the previous company, that company always think about the environment friendly, but it will be like a win-win situation. Business can't be go on the higher cost. So companies always think what are the best possible ways we can do the recycling and reduce the CO2 emission, and how we can get the carbon footprint and carbon credit also. And in that regard, just I can start with some points about the recycling, that as when we recycle, use the material and convert into the new product, reducing the need to consume the natural resource, as if use the material are not recycled, new product are made by injecting fresh raw material from the earth through the mining and the forestry. Recovering and recycling a recyclable product and the containers that are our concern area. By the recycling, a company is getting a benefit to reduce the amount of waste sent to the landfill and the incinerator, and the conserve the natural resources such as the timbers, water, and the mineral also. As our plant is located in the Himachal Pradesh, Kalam, so we are much closer to the nature also. Increase the economic security by the tapping the domestic sources of the material too, and prevent the pollution by reducing the need and collect the new raw materials, as well as the save the energies. In that regard, we we have started using our energy part. We have started the solar system as well as the natural gas also in the plant, so that we can reduce some way to and support to the environment. And in regard to the other like warehousing part, we always train to our manpower as well as the driver and helper also, how we can support to that environmental aspect and sustainability. Warehousing, as we know, that design, layout, and the location of the warehouse are the most important factor, which in the sustainability part. Layout need to such the vehicle movement it reduced, because we have a big compound in the plant. We always try to place such a way that we can limited use of the vehicle, so that that can't be increase your carbons, and then reduce it. And pause also the dock and the packing and shipping area is also in such a way that we can that close to our vehicle and the loading and unloading way. Often products that are typically sold together are moved next to each other in the packing areas. For this second thing, that we are the fuel consumption, which we have always ensured and tie up with the transporter who are using the CNGs and the other fuel component which can support to the environment. And also we in the warehouse personnel and other, we always say that turn off the light when we are not occupied. Yeah, use your solar systems, replace the older light fixtures which is more energy efficient. with the help of the admin and other resources, and that is giving us the good amount of the saving. And the provide the our dynamic airflow also we have used over there, recycling the business paper and the suppliers possible, because most of the supplier are the close to the our plant, and because as the sourcing is very important part of the any manufacturing unit, so which we are ensuring that it should be the closure. And definitely if the closure, definitely it will support to the environment also, because of the short distance and the reduce the carbon footprint. And the rain water harvesting is also happening in our plant, so that these are the something which we are doing in the inside the plant. In regard to the our transportation part, if you can talk about that, as India is not having the much rail network for our the FMCG product, apart from the your bulky item and food grain. But for such a FMCG, where we have the lesser amount of the movement, which is still required, and already India is doing on towards that. And Gati Shakti is the one of the good initiative by the government of India, where these are already considered how we can go on the higher side in the World Logistics Performance Index, which is given by the World Bank. And right now we are at the 44 positions, and how we can, as per the 2018 data, how we can go upside. Already we are doing in towards that. And if you can say that we have started exploring the inland waterways also, which is one of the way where we can reduce and focus on the sustainability. Railways network also, railway corridor is also started. We also started exploring how to move, and we have started movement from the north to the East India with the our 90% of the business movement. But yes, it is still required towards the improvise the our that movement. And in the globally, there are the many companies already working towards the sustainability part. We can talk about the different, there are the PNGs, Hindustan Lever, Nestle. These are the company who is already far away from the that this concept, and they are working towards the improvement.
Okay, great, Anilji. Nice to hear about the initiatives that you've taken within the company. I think an important point that you mentioned is about the layout of the warehouse and how it helps in reducing the the wastage of
Design,
energy.
layout, location of the warehouse is the very important, and the plant, it is very important, which can help to reduce within inside the your energy as well as outside the also energy.
Great, great. I'm sure that contributes to a large amount of wastage if not thought through. And not only sustainability, but it has a financial impact as well. So I think both the ticks are crossed in this kind of an effort. Deeply appreciated. So now I'll move to two or three open questions, which it's not specific to any panelist, but anybody is free to add to it. So when we talk about the triple bottom line impact, when I say triple bottom line is the environmental stewardship, the social equity and the well-being, and the financial prosperity. How do we integrate all these in the sustainability of our organizations, and whether it is or no? So are these three objectives linked together, and can they be a long-term part of the vision of the organizations? If anybody would like to share their thoughts on the subject, and how do we maintain the balance and take them in one breath? So it's open question to anybody. Anybody would like to participate, please go ahead.
Okay, maybe Aditya, I can attempt on that.
Yes,
See, I
please.
think that very nice way in a short term we call it as a ESG nowadays. What you just mentioned, and that's the buzzword and really picking up traction in I think entire world. When I look at that, and probably what we are doing to do that, we are emphasizing more on the people, because in this area, who's going to create that difference? It's the people. It's you and me and all my colleagues. So we are trying to help our people, our employees, as I said earlier, to our family members, to our suppliers, to our customers. So we are collaborating. We are sensitizing on our team. We have created a couple of, I will say, sensitization games also, which is online as well online. And our global teams, we are all together onto that. And we try to play that biodiversity risk game. So people understand, and it's an eye opener. I will tell you, it's an eye opener. Your actions, what causes the reaction or the implication on the environment side, the social side, and of course on the governance side. So we are emphasizing people. We believe in servant leadership. We believe on people empowerment, and very firm that we are training our teams, be it at operator level, be it our supplier level. We are trying to reach upstream as well as downstream of our supply chains to ensure that we do business in the right way and make our country great. So that's the factor we are in. People keeping people-centric policies and strategies on the ESG side of the area. So that's what we are trying to do.
Great.
I'll
Yes,
just
yes,
add
Mr.
on.
Shyam.
Yeah, I'll just add on. So I think I completely endorse what Amit was talking about. See, what happens is that when we talk about total bottom line, and like he rightly mentioned, see, ESG, see, it's a process to be adopted. You cannot just be theoretical on that, but we have to kind of put a practical approach to it. Like I'll tell you what happened with Colliers. See, Colliers is on the service side of things. I mean, on the whole real estate side of things, we are on the service industry. So what we did is that we went through a very, very detailed process. So what we did was we took 5 months, very, very robust experience that we went through. So what we did was we understood first, what are we doing? Then we went into the industry assessment. Then we looked at also peer organizations. So what we did was a 3-pronged approach. Then we did a lot of interviews. It was qualitative interviews that we did with organizations, the top executives of the country, various people across the globe, made a workshop with the impact group, took a full-fledged survey, and then with all the data that we collected, so what we decided is that we would definitely kind of get into a strategy that we frame for the country and for a global approach that we would take globally from a Colliers perspective. The ESG strategy that was arrived at will be that how do we elevate the built environment? So we know that it's a huge contributor, like I mentioned earlier also. I think we are a great contributor in terms of the overall emissions and things like that. As built environment, it's unavoidable. But how do we start reducing it? The other thing what I take from Amit as well is that the employees are very critical to this entire thing. So what we had taken up is how to elevate the health and well-being of the employees and our clients, and how do we kind of go about that. The other thing that we did from an ESG perspective is also elevating inclusiveness into the business. The other thing that we want to bring about is kind of see how our own operations can be tied up to measurable goals in the future. I think a very immediate future, what we want to do. Like, for example, I operate out of multiple offices across the globe. Then we look at our carbon footprint. We see how to kind of tie it up with certain immediate goals that we will kind of set up and see whether we can kind of attain that. So it is a process. Just to add up to what Amit said, it is a process. A lot of introspection goes into as a firm. Then we do this 360-degree feedback. We understand where we are in terms of benchmark. And then we start putting sustainable goals to it. So elevate the built environment is our ESG goal, and that is directly tied up to the way that we do business. So this entire DNA change is required if the company is really talking the ESG language, and that has to reflect in your approach. So that's the whole approach to how we did it, and everybody is now started taking this up very seriously at a very senior leadership level. It is one of the very critical agendas that we have on every meeting that we attend. So that's how it is done.
Great. I think very valid points. I'd like to share just thoughts as a company that what we've also envisaged and what steps we are doing and how it probably clicks all the 3 buttons. Traditionally, we've been very large in the chemical, logistics part of it, and we all know the kind of perils it can have if things go wrong on that side. So one of the biggest, I think, gaps what we saw is the safe warehousing part of the chemicals, which is an industry which needs to be really looked at. And we've come up with a new concept of a warehouse called ChemStore, which is the most compliant warehouse with all the safety measurements, and topped up with all the equipments in order to save energy, to have solar power. So we are trying to click all the three buttons in one. A, look at the safety of people and the environment around, protect the environment itself, have a business opportunity out of it, and make it as sustainable as possible. So all these initiatives combined together, help us deliver a solution to a client where we say, okay, we are not just here for business, but we are also here for sustainable business. We are here to, protect the environment, protect the people within our partners and the surroundings, which are, going to get affected if something goes wrong. And this initiative, if we can take, I'm sure other organizations can also start, thinking on those fronts, that how do you look at business, but look at it from also the angles that you are not, bypassing any safety norms, bypassing any people norms, environmental norms, and all are moving in the, same direction. So I think initiatives like this, and as Mr. Shyam mentioned, Ms. Amit mentioned, I think if all organizations of any size, it doesn't matter if you are small or big, if everybody takes their baby steps, I think as a country we move towards that direction. Great. One more question, I think one open question, and I think one of the audience member has also put in, a question related to is, how do we measure it? How do we measure the, the impact, or how do we rate ourselves or the industry or the companies, in terms of their efforts towards green logistics? So is there any way in which we can measure and rate ourselves with very transparent and authentic measures, which is acceptable to all, which will define that, yes, we were at this scale and now our goals are to reach here? And is there any index or can there be a solution around it, which can be very easily understood by people? So any thoughts on how do we measure all these impacts? Because there are a lot of small, big initiatives, but in a totality, how do we know that we have improved? So what could be, your thoughts on it? Is there a rating or is there an index that we can look at? Is there any international parameter that, probably helps us define where we are? So any thoughts on it? How do we measure it?
Yeah, hi Aditya. In this regard, that I can just put some point, because as a company we have implemented the ISO 14000, and then we always try to monitor on year basis and submit the data to our global headquarters.
Okay.
So that we can monitor where we are.
Okay. Great. So I believe we are still in an infancy stage, and there's not much of work that's happening. I'm not too sure. I mean,
so I'll just add up on this part, Aditya. So what we have done, I think, in terms of over the last couple of years, we have a projects team that advises on going green, right? So and this is very big, and it is caught up on the office scene of stuff, and it is slowly kind of transforming. So anything in the real estate realm first gets implemented in the office scheme of things. So that's where your decision makers said the whole implementation is easier because they are up the curve, and then slowly transforms into the warehousing realm. Like, for example, I mean, when you asked about metrics and how do we kind of go about, how do we kind of take this? I think the conscious decision are taken by a lot of global corporates that they would get into buildings that are pre-certified or certified. So one is LEED certification. That is one measurable way of kind of going about it. It's a very known metric. One is the USGBC, the US Green Building Council certification, or the Indian Green Building Council certification. I think we have that as one metric that is there. Apart from that, you have metrics that is like, we call it as BREEAM. BREEAM is the Building Research Establishment Environmental Assessment Method. So you can look at that. That is one thing. Recently, what we are talking about when this COVID hit, I think people are also talking about wellness. So there is certification called well certification. That is also something that people are looking up to. So these are certain certifications. If you need to achieve a certain certification, what happens is there are experts who will guide you on the process. Like, for example, there is a comprehensive checklist that is given, and how this is measured, how this has become tangible. That was the question that was asked. So what happens is, like, for example, in logistics, I'll come to throw a logistics thing as well. So today you have a certain fleet cost, you know what is the cost of operations, what is it that you're doing. When you choose an electrification, for example, like I heard Aditya, you mentioned that last mile deliveries are you're going green on that as well, right? From your proper electrification, where you're kind of totally moving towards battery operated vehicles. So that gives you a certain energy saving. Like, for example, when like I mentioned earlier also, the warehouses come with certain savings in terms of energy. So what happens is, from a normal warehouse, which is a legacy structure, to a new warehouse that is constructed recently, which has insulation, which has 7% of skylighting, the energy cost itself will show a very good indicator of 20 to 25%. We have seen this in real time, that out of operational costs that have happened, I think there are tangible savings. So one thing is to measure, second will be to monitor, and third thing is to kind of keep on implementing newer energies, like as they come by, how you kind of go to the newer technologies as they come by. So we have seen a lot of companies now get into that e-fleet. Like in the latest project that we are doing for one of our global corporates, they insisted on charging points for vehicles. I recently met with a developer in Chennai who had claimed that he has already put in e-vehicle charging points in his industrial park. So that means people who are coming, the commuters, are also making use of that. The fleets are also making use of that charging infrastructure. So charging infrastructure used to be like a good to have kind of a situation, slowly getting into the realm of must-haves. So how much of saving are they making out of that, and how many people get enthused to use that infrastructure? In India, like as long as you don't have something to use, people don't make that effort to kind of continuously use it. I mean, it's more about the initiative that people take. I think a lot of initiatives are happening today as we speak. And there are measurable, tangible steps that you can take to kind of have very clear. Your facilities person, the biggest task for him is today to monitor all these things and report to the management on a dashboard, like how much of savings has happened on operational costs. So these are very high on the radar.
Okay, great. I think
Aditya, I can add a bit.
Yes.
I think it's like famously we always say, what gets measured gets done or improved. Okay, so similarly metrics are available, and as I said, both my plants are LEED certified, and it's the platinum level. That's what the target was. So that is a very visible certification, and it helps. And also we are trying to map our carbon footprint across the plant. So we are trying to measure each and every machine, what's my consumption of power, electric power, oil, and everything. And that dashboard will be visible to me, to my team, and across my operator level at the shop floor. So that's where we are trying to see that we try to measure first where we are. And definitely I'm confident with our people-centric approach, we will be able to reduce it further. So aim is more focused on reducing the carbon content, and of course benefits go beyond cost on that side. So that's another factor I can add.
Great. So LEED certification and measuring at microscope level also is possible, and dashboards can be created to see the impact that we are doing.
Yeah.
Great. I think this was one of the questions from the audience. I think in anticipation of the Q&A was already asked that is there any ESG standard for logistics and warehouse, which I assume is more on the measurement side. So I think it has been rightfully answered. And yes, I think I agree that certificates like LEEDs, like for example, even our corporate office, we have around 250 people based over here. So that also is LEEDs certified, and we are getting it measured. So such initiatives are definitely, I think these are pretty old and good robust systems which are available, which are immediately measuring the kind of impact that we are. So definitely, I think more the transparency, more the data-driven work that we do on this front, it probably takes us forward leaps and bounds.
And Aditya, some more initiative company has taken. It is like you said, the baby steps. Yes, company has started taking a baby steps. Like recently, we have shifted our Delhi office to Gurgaon, a company has taken the initiative to the paperless office and take the use of the digitalized movement as a office as well as plant so that we can how we can support to the an entire offices with the greens, how we can use the LEDs and the other conventional light. So already company has focused in that part and they have started.
Wow, nice. Yeah, I think that also is going digital, going paperless. I think that's been a moment. I mean that I think I remember on emails where we see go paperless has been an initiative since so long. But on real sense, how many companies really push it down the line? Is something important. And now I think the criticality is such that with the digital options available, we might as well move towards it fast. So I completely agree. I think digitalization, paperless, big initiatives, and you have the technology support now. You have the ecosystem with your suppliers, your customers, which is built, which probably was missing earlier for it not to happen. Now, I don't think anybody can give a reason for not moving fast on. So totally agree. I think that that's definitely one good initiative. So I think we've come to the end of the panel discussion, and I think we'll have the last 10 minutes of Q&A. I've already received almost 4 odd questions. So I'll quickly direct it to the panel members who seem to be the best suited to answer it. I have the first question from Mr. Anish Nair, Head of Logistics from Acer. And the question is directed to Jihan. So he wants to know what's the ratio currently we have as drivers of next gen taking the jobs. And is there a decline that we could see? And what's the industry doing for it to have more youngsters to take this as an option for respectable living? So what I understand is the driver community, how much of, how many youngsters and next generation of driver families are taking interest in taking up this job, and what can be done? I think the question is directed on that part.
Right. So to answer the question, I think it's pretty obvious, but we don't have the exact statistic, but there has been a major decline when it comes to the last, you can say, decade in terms of road logistics and the kind of people entering trucking. From a personal, I can tell you from personal anecdotes and personal experience, what we see in our trucking industry, what we used to have is to be a driver and a cleaner, and that cleaner would pay to, or not only pay but work for free, with the driver to learn how to drive. Which now, even after paying, you don't get a cleaner, right? So the industry statistics says that it's about 30%. I personally believe that as long as there's a truck, there has to be a driver. Given our Indian ecosystem, the truth is that what will happen essentially is that first they were getting paid 8,000, and then now they're getting paid around 25 to 30,000. As there'll be a shortage, again the salaries will get bumped up to 40, 50,000. So it's a supply and demand kind of situation, and honestly, the industry has to just deal with it. It's a fact of life. So the truth is that there is a steep decline. The second is that what can we do about it? Instead of answering that question, I would like to just point out one very important fact or truth which I have seen in my limited experience, is that companies, ESG goals and green goals are great for European and American and all developed countries. In India, the truth is that, if you ask me personally, is that the laborer or the worker in the warehouse or the driver on the gate, or your manufacturing plant worker is getting paid minimum wage, 15,000, 20,000 bini hai. So the truth is, let's start with our own companies personally paying them a little bit higher, and then compare that to what's happening abroad, and see if we can actually improve that from a standard of living point of view. That's number one. Number two, even truck drivers, until they get paid well, they're not going to be coming into the system. If you look at even abroad, there's a shortage. In Europe, there's a shortage. In Australia, there's a shortage. In Japan, there's a massive shortage of truck drivers. And the solution is not to say that we need more young people to come in. The solution is you increase the pay. You increase the pay, automatically people will see it as a viable option and will work. It's not that they won't. So that's I think a very simple solution. There is no complexity in it. You start paying 50,000, you'll get a massive surge of people. All youngsters will want to become a truck driver. Like earlier, everybody wanted to become an engineer. Now engineer salaries aren't so much, so now everybody's moving to IT. And so the moment the income is something that actually drives where the labor force will be directed. Number two is with India, again, I've seen that companies talk very big stuff, right? You tell the same transport company, for you example, Aditya, you have a chemical warehouse. You tell your customer you will charge 5% more because you're safer. And as the same company panelists are on this, all of the people who have joined this call, how many people will pay that 5% extra? They won't. They'll say same L1 match karo and take the price. Right? The same happens with me trucking. You tell me as a truck owner that I should ideally keep my trucks. Honestly, we do. We keep our trucks, there's no night driving. But you tell an FMCG brand that, boss, we are not going to do night driving and hence our freight is 10% higher. You're not going to get the business. You'll be out of business. You have to pay your driver lesser. You have to squeeze in. You have to do all of those things, unfortunately. So the truth is that it's not going to be an easy task. And mentally, as long as it helps us to put LED lights, and as long as electric vehicles is profitable, hum karenge. The moment you tell electric is more expensive, sorry boss, you continue on diesel, environment gaya, uska dekhenge, right? So essentially, I think what we need to fundamentally understand and change is our attitude towards, one is human life and human well-being, right? The second is to come to an answer to your second part of the question, which is how do we encourage youngsters to come into the field? Is there needs to be a systematic growth potential. My driver, for example, and I'm talking in my company, I have a driver who's working with me for 15 years. I pay him the same salary I'm paying a 5-year-old driver. Why should the 15-year-old driver continue with it or even become a driver? They take it as a curse. They are like, kuch nahi kar sakte, ye majburi hai, right? And it's sad to watch that. The same, I'm sure, happens in warehouses as well. There's hardly any growth. So we need to design systems, we need to build infrastructure, we need to build entire pipelines to actually make them see that, okay, you can become a master level driver, right? You can earn 50,000, you can go on to maybe trailers or hydraulic axle vehicles and earn 1 lakh rupees. We have to show them that vision. And I think that would be what would attract youngsters into the thing. Otherwise, if there is no increased additional income, I doubt it's going to move the needle even slightly. We will just see your costs going up, and transporters, as usual, consolidation is happening. Only big fleet owners are entering the ecosystem thanks to GST. So that will continue to happen. Your entrepreneurs, self-made, which was earlier 80% of our ecosystem, which is self-drive vehicles, all of this is all going to die. They're going to be out of the ecosystem. So
correct. Yeah, I echo the sentiment with Jayan that ultimately it's a demand and supply kind of a scenario. At the same time, I think what compounds the issue is somewhere, I think, definitely the dignity that we give to drivers as a community. This subject, I mean, driver as a subject, how dignified are they, in eyes of general public, in eyes of the entire ecosystem? That itself, answers the question. How do we look at, that segment of professionals?
That Aditya, and the so-called multinationals of our country don't have clean toilets to offer these drivers, right?
Right.
A simple thing. It's forget our thing. It's just the truth is that there's no value, right? They don't see why should we build. So and if they do also, it'll make such a big deal as if you made a toilet for a truck driver, as if it's a monumental thing that was happened, right? I had some companies recently do that, and I said that's a basic thing. Like, what are you bragging about? Are you serious, right? And that's just drivers. And leave put aside drivers, even how we treat others in our, you will have the top of the pyramid doing well. Everybody's getting their cushy salaries, great AC offices, everything's working well. Moment you go to the bottom of the pyramid and you see their life, you see how getting treated by like shit on the road is I'm sorry for my language, is absolutely the truth of the matter. And in the factories, at least if companies change their attitudes in the factories, a watchman treats the guy with dignity. That's something we can influence, right? But we don't, because that's an additional expense, right? So that's so I am very passionate about this, and I unfortunately not when it comes to brutal truth, not everybody can digest it. But
Correct.
I echo your sentiment. It will happen. It's just a matter of time. But given our population, we have so many unemployed people, another 2 decades will go till you actually see a driver get 1 lakh salary. Because there will always be, it will shift. First it was, what you call Punjabi drivers, then move to Rajasthan, then move to UP. Now it's moved to Bihar. As the income slabs, keep getting lower, the bottom of the pyramid keep getting suppressed. So it's the sad truth. But we have to do what we can in our limited capacity to make the change. So
Great, appreciated. No, I agree, and I think overall the economic viability and the better pay scales, coupled with I think dignity to this community, and where everybody's participation is there, that seems to be the only solution that will probably help.
growth prospect. You need to be able to say that, okay, today I'm doing this, 5 years from now I'm going to grow. I can't keep the same. All of us in our careers grow, right? Why shouldn't a laborer or a driver?
Correct. And we've experienced it ourselves also that, I mean, we have in our system, we have, third or fourth generation of, drivers also who are, maybe his grandfather was part of the business. Now he's maybe a driver come owner of, a fleet of vehicles. The moment they see it's a sustainable career option and it's a business possibility also where I can partner along with the company is when the motivation kicks in. And again, the underlining fact is, whether you were a driver or you were an owner of a fleet, if you are not respected or if you are not, seem to be a part of a very crucial linkage, that respect goes down and hence, everything tumbles back. So I think, as I said, pay scale definitely important. Dignity to drivers. We've run campaigns. Actually, we call it dignity to driver, where we do sustained training across the system that how will he be treated when he steps into a branch or a hub reflects upon the mindset of the people who are talking to them. So that message has gone very drilled down, and I hope across the sector, whether it is on road, in factories, in warehouses, or at transport, godowns, the same needs to be practiced. Then only I think we'll be able to at least stop the attrition to a certain extent. May not be able to add to the addition big much, but we'll at least stop the exit or exodus from the industry. So great. Thanks, Gian. Quite a good discussion. I think we are running short of time, so I have 2 questions, and I think we'll have to pause then. We have a question from Mr. Karthikeyan, and I think this would be better suited to Mr. Amit. Will a focus on rope car transport and drones wherever possible help reduce emissions notably? And I think you mentioned some discussions on it. So if you have any thoughts, and anybody else also who can add on to it.
Aditya, can you just repeat the question, please?
So will a focus on rope car transport and drones wherever possible help reduce the carbon emissions?
I think so. Okay. I did mention drones as a part of mobility because the definition of mobility is changing. And drones can play a vital role today. Today, probably they are playing vital roles in the military action. But tomorrow, we might see it in our regular way. And of course, what it will fly is only on the batteries. Okay, so that's how it is. So it's more from a EV standpoint, battery-operated vehicle of any mobility, whether it's a drone or a two-wheeler or anything else, will definitely have an edge over our regular IC engines and can save on the environment side. So that's what I can say on this question.
Okay, great. And I think last question, and then I think we'll pause. Is the CSR mandate from government sufficient enough for the industry to reach the ESG objectives, or is there more need to work on the compliance framework? So any thoughts on this? Is the mandate from the government enough, which will be invested into the governance and sustainable part, or is there more room for compliances to be tightened?
So I'll take that, Aditya. So
Yes.
I mean, CSR initiative, I think at least the government has mandated certain things that you can't avoid. I think that's a good step. I mean, it is one step that now by default you have to do. I mean, that has helped the cause. But I mean, I heard Jihan being very passionate about the way that he articulated the whole framework and what's the actual real-time reality of what we are seeing in today's world. So my thing is this. I mean, there is a saying that you have to do well by doing good. So doing well by doing good is something that can solve a lot of pressing issues. Okay, but then it is not easy to kind of actually do that. You need to have very purpose-driven leaders. You have to find those opportunities, and also it takes real courage and very hard work to kind of make the firm's purpose not only making money, but these are the companies that I feel that will make the first move in terms of kind of making things possible. See, if something is thrust on you by force, that is something where people will try to. It will always be resisted. It will always have ways to work around. But if it comes from the deep sense of purpose of the organization as such, like I said, it will all stem down from the leaders. And your objective should not be only money making, but it has to be a larger purpose than that. Like the ESG always talks about people, the profits, and also how you want to kind of give back to the society, right? The planet itself. So these 3 P's is what everybody keeps talking about. And I think these are all for greater good. But I think overall it has other salient features like the overall behavioral aspects of the population at large and things like that. And it has to get ingrained. I mean, like how you do dignity for drivers. I think it has to be ingrained in the system that, look, there has to be a fundamental shift to treat others good and have that larger sense of purpose. Like it goes to small things that like you save water at home and then it becomes a habit and that you want to kind of implement it elsewhere at well. Single-use plastics, we've stopped using any single-use plastic at office. I mean, these are small steps, but these also warrants for a lot of change from your end. As a human being, as an employee, as a boss, as a leader, I think there are multiple steps that we play. To answer the question, I think CSR has definitely helped. I think it's all set people thinking in that direction at least, but that is not alone enough to kind of reach where we need to. So that's the whole answer.
Okay, great. So thanks, Mr. Shyam. So coming to the end of, I think, the session, we had a great amount of inputs from all the participants. I sincerely thank each one for the views they brought in. Just to summarize, I think what we've discussed today, and I think the views that have come in from everybody. So starting with, I think, safety. Safety, I think, has been discussed as a big subject, and I think the statistics which Jihan has shared, somewhere open our eyes in terms of where we are as a country, and the gravity of the situation on road, and it requires an holistic effort to address this issue, as it's our moral responsibility, to address this fatality angle. Safety in warehouses, I think that is a subject that also needs to be probably looked at, because there also we are deploying tons of people, and the overall consciousness that needs to be built in, I think that comes through a culture. So now I think it's time that the sustainability and the financial imbalance needs to be looked at an organization level across the segments if we are really serious about making an impact. We heard about trends which are happening in the mobility sector, and I think it's interesting to look at how fast we are able to get solutions which are more efficient, and with the effort, I think what Mr. Amit shared, it's not going to be far off that we'll have solutions which are efficient by itself, by the design of the products the mobility industry will come forward with. Then obviously we also discussed about how the building and the infra, whether it is a warehouse infra, whether it is a factory infra, can lead to huge amount of savings financially, as well as offset large amount of carbon footprint. Usage of solar, the right kind of designs, the insulation angles, and the various technologies that were maybe not thought through earlier are available, which can be looked at, and we can measure the kind of impact that it is having on, saving the CO2 emissions. Last but not the least, we discussed about the measurability part of it. That can we really measure the impact? So there are certifications available. There are initiatives where dashboards can be made to look at each and every effort put in and the outcome that is there. So yes, it can be measured. There are solutions available. Leads, I think, has been discussed as one of the prominent ways to certify an infra, which can be looked at in terms of certifying the effort that you put in, and various other initiatives. So yes, it's measurable. It can be measured, and it must be measured so that we know that there is an impact that is being created. So broadly, I think it's been an amazing session. Lots to discuss. We are just, I would say, we have just started our direction into this sustainability part as an industry and as a country. But I think the pace with which we are going to progress, companies, as somebody mentioned, that we are having sustainability goals not further than 2025 defined. I think that's the kind of aggression if the overall country and the participants start working on. I don't think anything could stop India and the industry to move leaps and bounds onto this sustainability part. So greatly appreciated. I think thank you once again all the panelists, and thank you CII for this opportunity. Lots to learn, very interesting subject, and I hope more such initiatives are taken in the future where we are able to learn and also address some of these pertinent issues. So thank you very much. Thank you each and everybody, and thank you CII.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice
Thank
meeting
you.
Thank you,
Everybody,
Aditya.
thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.